So, are you anything like I was? Are you reading all of the self-help books that you can, and you're just not seeing the improvements that you were hoping to see? Or did you get some maybe helpful tips here and there from one guru or another, but something still feels like it's missing? I was definitely one of those people. And after reading all of those books and listening to all of those gurus, I was never really fully satisfied. It was kind of like eating potato chips for my soul, like spiritual fast food. And I would leave feeling kind of good, but also like something was missing. And after a little time had passed, I felt almost completely empty again. And listening to guru after guru, they would all say something to the effect of like, you need to change your mindset into thinking positively, which always left me thinking, yeah, okay, but how do I actually do that? How do I just magically change my mindset? Now, personally, I believe that I found what worked for me in being able to change my mindset, and I will add some chapters to the video so that you can jump ahead to the chapter that says what worked for me, if you like. But first, I want to compare what the self-help gurus are offering versus what ended up actually helping me. But before we get into that, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you like content like this. Okay, so this is Leila Hormozi, and in case you don't know who she is, she talks a lot about business and motivation, and she has tons of success in many areas of her life. But I want to highlight what her advice actually is versus what she actually did to get through a few mindset blockages that she was having.
Most people hesitate to step up because they are terrified of being judged. They want approval and they want to fit in, just like I did, more than they want to succeed. They want to win. They want to have the life that they've always wanted to build. They want to be the person that they want to be. If you're unwilling to be misunderstood, you are essentially unwilling to get unstuck. So here's what I want you to do. Write down one thing that you're holding back on because you are afraid of what people will think about you. And then what you can do is you can take one small step towards that action today. Post a piece of content, have a hard conversation with somebody, just speak the truth to somebody, put an idea, pen to paper, do something, allow yourself to be judged. Do not fight it. It's like a lot of the times when we feel like we're being judged, we immediately want to get out of that zone. We're like, I don't want to feel like I'm being judged. But if you just stay there and you allow yourself to be judged, what you will find on the other side of that is actually freedom. Because once you realize that you can tolerate judgment from other people, you can have anything you want and you can be whoever you want.
So now I actually really love Leila Hormozi. I do think that she has an unbelievable wealth of knowledge when it comes to many different topics. And this advice she's sharing right here isn't bad necessarily. And I sense that all she's trying to do is genuinely help people. And this advice might actually help some people. But do I genuinely think that it's going to drastically help and change the lives of most people who put this into practice? No, unfortunately, I don't. And the first issue that I see here is she says that writing down what's holding you back can help. And my issue with that is that so many of our mental blockages aren't actually conscious decisions that we are making. For example, a friend of mine would often pick the wrong guy for her. And we noticed that for whatever reason, the guys that she were picking were also skateboarders or surfers. Now, I'm not saying that skateboarders and surfers are all bad. I'm not trying to make some kind of sweeping generalization. I'm just saying that the ones that she often picked were bad for her. And oddly, they were always surfers or skateboarders. Like she could take a trip to New York City, go get a coffee at 11 a.m., and the guy behind her would start chatting her up and flirting and ask for her number, never talking about skateboarding or surfing. But the first date or the second date, she would somehow find out that he was also a surfer or skateboarder. And how does that just magically keep happening? How does she keep just randomly choosing guys like that if her subconscious isn't the one in the driver's seat? And we all know someone like this. We know someone who just keeps picking the same kind of person over and over, regardless of whether or not that person is actually good for them. The other point that I could make about Layla's advice is the part where she says that doing these things will help you tolerate being judged. And she also alludes to how it can help you get over the fear of being judged. Now, I can uniquely speak to this firsthand because I did this exact advice a long time ago because I realized that if I didn't get over this fear of being judged, I wouldn't have been able to get a job, go on interviews, or be as successful in my life as I have been. However, what she does not talk about is the fact that the fear doesn't always just go away. That fear can sometimes manifest into suppressed anxiety, like it did with me. So sometimes self help will just put a band aid over a problem without actually getting to the root issue, which may sometimes lead to a whole new set of problems. Now, we just heard her advice, right, of what she thinks we could do. But now I want to actually listen to what she says she actually did that I think are the real reasons she was able to succeed. So this video is called How I Turned My Life Around. It's a different video from the other one I shared. And that's kind of a little introduction to who she is and the struggles she's been trying to overcome. And then I'm going to jump ahead in the video. Throughout the video, she talks a little bit about herself. And then she talks about a point in her life when she goes to a party at a friend's house where she was going to be seeing a lot of her friends from high school. And she was really not excited about it at all.
By the age of 19, I allowed myself to get nearly 100 pounds overweight. Today, I want to share with you how I got there, what I did to get out of there, and how I ultimately ended up losing the weight and placing second in a national bikini competition. So if you're in a spot where you feel like you don't know what to do, maybe it's losing weight or any bad habit that's gotten the best of you, I hope that this story applies to you and can help you. Time goes on and then it comes up to the time of the party. I get there and nobody from high school is there yet. We start playing beer pong, I start drinking, and then I get like enough of a buzz that I feel like, okay, if somebody walks in, I'm not like terribly uncomfortable. It feels fine, people are nice, they're like, it's so good to see you, like it was like all positive. And I felt like, oh my God, thank God, like nobody like has said anything or like there's no like weirdness. Then I went to the back of her condo at the time to go to the bathroom, and there was a guy there from my high school. I walked past him and he whispered something, and I was like, what'd you say? Because he kind of mumbled something under his breath. What is that you said? And he was like, oh, I was just saying it's such a shame. I was like, it's such a shame? And he was like, well, he's like, it's such a shame because you have such a good face and you're so cool, but you're just so fat now. And I remember in that moment, just sheer horror. Like I still feel like tightness in my stomach thinking about it today because it was just like so humiliating. So humiliating. And the humiliation like quickly turned to rage. And I was like, fuck this, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not living this life anymore. Like I'm so over this. When he said that to me, what was so enraging was my like what I said to myself after he said that to me, which was, yeah, he's right. It wasn't like, oh, fuck you. It wasn't like you're a piece of shit. I'm like, just pointing out the obvious. It was literally the next day. I remember like I went to bed that night and I woke up and I was like, I'm done. Everything changes today. And so a lot of people say like negative emotions and getting rid of them. Fuck that, this worked for me. My anger was so useful in that moment because I was so fed up with myself that I was motivated to change. And I think that you're either motivated to change because you're so desperate to get out of where you are, or you're so drawn to the future and the hopeful thing that you feel pulled to do so.
So right here, she says, basically all the positive changes that came into her life happened after this moment, the moment that she decided to finally accept the truth about herself, not to get angry, not to be combative, not to try to go further into denial or further into despair. It was the fact that she had reached the point where she was able to really look at herself and say, yeah, that's the truth. And I'm going to make a decision to change for the better. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about this point later because this is key to what helped me also. But I want you to hear these next 3 points that she brings up too first.
Realizes things were about to get a lot harder pretty quickly. I did not have any support. I started to feel this like intense divide between me and the people that I had surrounded myself with for so long. And it honestly just started to feel like incredibly lonely. I remember I got to a point where I'd lost 40 pounds on my own. And I was like, holy shit. It was at that point that I said, I think I want more support. It wasn't that I needed guidance necessarily. I just wanted somebody to talk to.
So she talks about not having any support and how difficult that was, and how she was able to keep the motivation once she found a group of people to help support her, which is fantastic for people who are able to find that kind of group. But what are people supposed to do if they don't have that support? My personal solution addresses this issue. Here are two more points that I wanted to show.
Yes, it was tough to eat boring food at times and do workouts when you don't feel like it. I think that's tough for anybody, right? But the hardest part for me was the posing. I hated looking at myself in a mirror. Even though I'd lost all this weight, like I couldn't comprehend that I was in shape. Like I constantly was like, oh, I'm fat. Like all I could see was fat. So it was like this disassociation with myself, learning how to be okay and accept myself like in a bikini. That was so much harder mentally than any other piece of the process.
See, I think that this is a very interesting point that she brings up. She mentions, even though she's done all of this work and made this huge transformation on the exterior, she can't seem to change what her mind's eye sees and thinks of herself. And I think that most people can understand how very real this problem is. And to this day, unfortunately, I question if she still struggles with this issue because, as you've seen from the first video I showed you to this older video that I'm showing you now, she's done some work on herself with plastic surgery. Um, and I worry, I hope she can see herself the way I think we all see her, as this beautiful young woman. But I wonder, does she still struggle with this issue of being able to see herself as beautiful? So I think that this is a very interesting point that she brings up. And I want to talk about now this last point that she brings up.
And I remember I got called for finals. I'm competing in California. There's a huge class of girls. And so I was like, there's just no way that I'm going to place anything. I remember I made it to the night show and we got on the stage. You stand up there and you're just like sucking it in as hard as possible, like tensing all your muscles, and they're calling everybody. I started noticing that I was one of the only ones left on stage. And I remember just being like so shocked because I couldn't believe that I was one of the last people left standing, because they're all prettier than me and they're all in better shape than me. And like, I used to be fat just like a year and a half ago. Like I was like huge. Like, how am I here? And I remember finally when they started handing out the trophies, they called me and I got second, not just in my class, but overall. And I just remember complete disbelief. Like it was insane. My goal was just to get on the stage. It wasn't to accomplish anything. It wasn't to place first. Like, it just wasn't that. It was just to get on the stage. There's gotta be there's a mistake here. Like, I don't get it. Like, that was the moment. And I remember I stepped off the stage, and the crazy thing was that I felt no different than before. You know, I think a lot of people think like once you do the big thing that you set out to do, it's like everything changes after this moment. And it didn't. Like, you wake up the next day, you do the same thing as you did the day before, and you feel pretty much the same way you felt before. You're just a little more confident and a little more convicted in your ability to do something. I wouldn't have been the person that could accomplish starting a new business if I hadn't chosen to do that.
So as you can see at the end, the other thing that she brings up is that after all of that, she didn't feel any different after that success. She woke up the next day and just continued on as she was going. Granted, it was in the positive trajectory that she was going on, which is great, but she didn't feel any different inside. So let's break everything down now. And I'm going to use myself and my journey as an example and compare it to everything that we just talked about. So there were quite a few things that I really wanted to change about myself for 20 years, but I wasn't able to make any progress. My issues were mostly being over emotional and upset a lot or angry from time to time. And I tried so hard to change in my own will for so long and with no real results. But since I was consuming so many of the self-help guru tips, there were two gurus that I had listened to in the same day. And something about that brought me one step closer to what actually eventually did help fix my problem. Now, the first guru I listened to was Tony Robbins, who basically said that you're the one messing this up. But that's kind of good news because that means that you are the one who can fix this. And then the second guru I listened to was actually a financial guru who was Dave Ramsey. And he was talking about how the Bible helped him get his finances and his life in order. And that was the day that I said to myself, maybe I'm the problem. And maybe I should get a Bible and start reading it for myself. So I had decided to accept the truth about myself and do what I needed to do to change. Just like with Leila, that was my first step. And that's almost always the first step that people need to take. You need to accept the truth about yourself and what you're doing to make this situation happen in your life. And then you need to accept that you need to change and then do everything in your power to change. But now we're back to the big problem. If what you need to change is your mindset, how do you magically just do that? Here's the answer. Sometimes you just can't, at least not by yourself. Even years after I had been slowly and steadily reading my Bible and getting closer to God, I was finally starting to see real progress, leaps and bounds farther than I was ever able to do for decades trying in my own will. I think a lot of the progress I made was simply by just doing what the Bible suggests we do, which, as we mentioned before, is precisely what Leila did when she was drinking a lot and eating a lot. So the first thing that we need to do is just accept the truth. And then we need to stop doing the things that are bad for us, like drinking and overeating, also known as gluttony and other forms of sin. We should also stop those. So just like the Bible says, the fewer things you do that are bad for you, aka sins, the better off your life will be. But none of us are perfect. I get that. And although I had made immense progress in my first few years with God, I would still have extreme moments of difficulty from time to time, moments where I was on my knees in tears, trying to figure out why I can't stop being so upset and so angry. Every fiber of my being just wanted to start an argument and scream like I used to do in the old days when I would get into that same headspace. And you guys, not going back to my old ways was actually physically painful for me. I am not joking and I am not exaggerating, but sometimes I needed to just seclude myself in a room and pray and just cry. And I would beg God to help me because I cannot do this by myself. I know that He says that I should not be quick to anger, that I should not give a full vent to my anger. And I know that He says that I should be a peacemaker, but I can't stop these feelings. So, God, you need to take this from me because I can't do this on my own and I need your help. You told me to call on you if I need help. So here I am. Help, please. And He did. I have no idea how He did it, but ever since that moment that I was on my knees, crying in tears, begging Him to help me take this away, I honestly haven't felt like that ever since. Now, maybe at some point it might come back, but it's been almost a year now since I've had that feeling. And in the past, that feeling used to come upon me at least once or twice every month. And it's been over a year now, fingers crossed. And this is what really helped me to understand why God says, give us this day our daily bread, because the guidance that God can give you is what my soul was always searching for, but never actually got before I was saved. Now, I finally feel like my soul is truly nourished and satisfied compared to the potato chip feeling of satisfaction that you would get from those self-help gurus and the self-help books. When self-help isn't connected to the source of joy and peace and life itself, then the advice will end up leaving you feeling empty, just like it did with me. So I totally understand why everybody who reads these books, pretty much everyone ends up feeling empty because there's nothing behind the source of those books that's the source of life itself. So, just as we had mentioned before, Layla said that her mind couldn't even fathom what she was seeing in the mirror because in her mind, she wasn't a beautiful girl. I'm here to tell you that God has renewed my mind, just like he says in the Bible that he will do. He has made me a new creation, and I actually feel that way. I really do feel different. Layla said after all that she had gone through, all the success that she has had, that she woke up the next day and didn't feel any different. Now, let me tell you that you will feel different when you finally understand that Jesus Christ is real and fully experience who he is and what he's capable of doing in your life by helping you to do things that you tried to do on your own without him, but couldn't do it for over 20 years. But he can do it in a day. So, yeah, no, I'm sorry. But if you experience something like that and many of the other things that I have experienced throughout my own journey, then please believe me that you are a different person after that. You are profoundly changed for the rest of your life, and nothing will ever be the same again. And personally, I wouldn't have it any other way. And all I want is for everyone out there to know that this stuff is real, that Jesus is real, that he can and wants to help you. And all you need to do is believe that he's real, call on him for help, and do your best to do what he says. Because what he says is just for you to do things that are good for you and for the people around you so that you can live a truly peaceful, joyous, thriving, and healthy long life. Now, knowing what I know, I can see that all of these other self help books and gurus have basically just taken pages and concepts from the Bible itself. All the best advice out there is just some kind of derivative of a lesson that can be learned from the Bible directly. So, why don't you just go right to the source? The benefits will be so much deeper and long lasting and fulfilling than anything that these mere mortal human being people can offer you. Because the real truth behind all of those people is that none of them have it all figured out. There's not a single human being on the face of this earth that can help you better than the advice given to us from thousands of years ago from the Bible. So, that concludes my rant. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that this was eye-opening and helpful, at least on some level. And I'll talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.